Hello everyone, welcome to the today's session. First, let me introduce myself. This is C.Siva, and I am studying third year of Individual Tech Software Engineering in Velour Institute of Technology, Chennai. My instructor is organization, and we are going to see an topic about brute force attack related to the information. Now we will see the agenda of the session. Now we will see what is the brute force attack, then how the brute force attack works, then we will see the types of brute force attacks are exist and how to prevent brute force attacks, then we will see the advantages and disadvantages of the brute force attack. First we will see what is brute force attack. Brute force attack consists of an attacker submitting many passwords or passwords with the hope of eventually guessing correctly. The attacker systematically checks all possible passwords and passwords until the correct one found. Brute force is combination of permutation of the username and password of the user and trying to see any of those are right. Brute force is a hacking technique where we are guessing the credentials, we are not exporting any vulnerability of web application. And it is a trial and error method because we have a large list of username and password. In some case, if we know the username is single but the password is a large list of possible password, so we have to try each of these components and see whether we get the right one or wrong. That's why it is trial and error. And we have so many tools used for brute force attack. Here are some tools, that is Metasploit and John the Ripper and Aircrack and Hydra and Medusa. Some of the tools we are using for brute. We will see how the brute force attack works. First, we will send the list of usernames and list of passwords to the brute force tool which we seen before, and the brute force tool will send the combination of username and password to the authentication whether the username and password is valid or not. If the username is valid, then it will send a response as success or failure. The like, if we say sending username 1 and password as password 1, and we are sending to the authenticate. If the username 1 and user password 1 is valid, then it will respond as success. Else it will failure. If this authentication is success, it will store the username and password. Then it will send another combination of username and password to the to authenticate. If the another username and password is valid, then it will store the credentials. Else it will not store. Like this the brute force attack works. We will see types of brute force attacks we have, that is rainbow table attacks and dictionary attacks, simple brute force attacks, hybrid brute force attacks, reverse brute force attacks, and finally credential recycling. We will see one by one. In rainbow table attacks, rainbow table attacks are unique as they don't target passwords. Instead, they are used to target the hash function which encrypts the credentials. The table is a pre-computed dictionary of plain text passwords and corresponding hash values. Hackers can then see which plain text passwords produce a specific hash and expose them. When a user enters a password, it converts into a hash value. If the hash value of the inputted password matches the stored hash value, the user authenticates. Rainbow table attacks exploit this process. We will see next attack, dictionary attacks. This a dictionary attacks uses a dictionary of possible passwords and tests them all. Instead of using an exhaustive key search, where they try every possible combination. The hacker begins from an assumption of common password. They build an dictionary of passwords and interact the inputs. With this approach, hackers eliminate having to attack websites randomly. Instead, they can acquire a password list to improve their chances of success. Dictionary attacks often need a large number of attempts against multiple targets. And next attack, that is simple brute force attack. This is simple, like a simple brute force attack is used to gain access to local file. As there is no limit to the number of access attempts, the higher the scale of the attack, the more successful the chances are of entry. Simple brute force attacks circulate, inputting all possible passwords at a time. That is simple brute force attacks. And next type of attack is hybrid brute force attack. The hybrid brute force attacks combines aspects of both the dictionary and simple brute force attack. This means hybrid. Hybrid means combination of some. That is, it begins with an external logic such as the dictionary attack and moves on to modify passwords asking onto a simple brute force attack. The hybrid attack uses a list of passwords instead of testing every password. It will create and try small variations of the words in the password list, such as changing cases and adding numbers. And next type of attack is reverse brute force attack. This reverse brute force attack flips the method of guessing passwords on its head. Rather than guessing the passwords, it will use a generic one and try to brute force a username. And we will see the final type of brute force attack, that is credential recycling. That is, as it sounds, a credential recycling reuses passwords. Since many institutes don't use password managers or have strict password policies, password reuse is an easy way to gain access to accounts. Because these cyber attacks depend entirely on lists of second-hand credentials gained from data breaches. They have a low rate of success. It essentials to update usernames and passwords after a breach regularly to limit the effectiveness of stolen credentials. Now we will see how to prevent brute force attack. The key indication a bad actor is trying to brute force their way into your system is monitor unsuccessful login attempts. If you see there have been many repeated failed login attempts because suspicious, watch for signs related to multiple failed login attempts from the same IP address and the use of multiple usernames from the same IP address. Other signs can include a variety of unrecognized IP address unsuccessfully attempting to log into a simple account, an unusual numerical or alphabetical pattern of failed logins, and multiple login attempts in a short period of time. It's also possible for these cyber attacks to add you to a botnet that can perform denial of service attacks on your website of a brute force attack. If you receive an email from your network service provider notifying you of a user from an unrecognized location logged into your system, immediately change all passwords and credentials. We will see now how to prevent brute force attack. The first thing is increase password length. It will take lot of time when the password is more. Basically, if you create a password with a greater length, it will take more time, making it more difficult for the hacker to hack the credentials. The next prevention method is increase password complexity. If you use only numbers as your password, it is easy to guess because the password generator can generate the password pretty quick. And suppose if we create a password consists of numbers, characters and symbols, the password complexity increases. Even more, so it's better to increase the password length and also with the complexity. The next way to prevent brute force attack is limit the login attempts. The brute force attack has to try the all combination of username and password. If we gave a limit to the login attempts as 3, then the brute force attacks tried 3 times and not cracked the credentials, then automatically it has to block for some time and the notification has to send. Then the brute force attack can't attempt to the credentials. The next way to prevent brute force attack is use OTP. When a user wants to log in, then the user has to give the OTP sent to the registered mobile number. The brute force can get the OTP from the user. If the brute force attack identified the username and password, the next step is the user has to give the OTP. The brute force attack can't get the OTP. Then, like that, we can prevent the brute force attack. The next way to prevent brute force attack is use captcha. Brute force attack only work with the combination of username and password, not with the captcha, because the captcha will change automatically when it is refreshed. The brute force attack work only with the username and password. It can read the captcha. If it is reading the captcha, then it is tough to give the combination of username and password. And the next way to prevent the brute force attack is two-factor authentication. The two-factor authentication is like first step is giving credentials, and the next step can be fingerprint or question and answers. Like that, we can prevent the brute force attack. Now we will see advantages of brute force algorithm. The following are the advantages of brute force algorithm. The algorithm finds all the possible solutions and it also guarantees that it finds the correct solution to your problem. This type of algorithm is applicable to a wide range of domains. It is mainly used for solving simpler and small problems. It can be considered a comparison bankbench to solve a simple problem and does not require any particular domain knowledge. Now see disadvantages of brute force algorithm. The following are the disadvantages of brute force algorithm. It is an inefficient algorithm as it requires solving each and every state. It is a very slow algorithm to find the correct solution as it solves each state without considering whether the solution is feasible or not. The brute force algorithm is neither constructive nor creative as compared to other algorithms. Now we see an example. For example, if there is a lock of 4-digit pin, the digits to be chosen from 0 to 9, then the brute force will be trying all possible combinations one by one, like 0001, 0002, 0003, 0004, and so on until it will get right pin. In the worst case, it will take 10,000 tries to find the right combination. If the pin consists of combination of characters, numbers and symbols like one symbol and a number and some characters, then it will be difficult to the brute force attack to match the pin. In conclusion, stay safe and secure. The primitive nature of brute force attacks means there is an easy way to defend against them. The best defense against a brute force attack is to buy yourself as much time as you can, as these types of attacks usually take weeks or months to provide anything of substance to the hacker. The simplest precaution you can take to boost your account security is to use strong passwords. It is also highly recommended to monitor servers and systems at all times. Utilizing a threat management system can significantly help as it detects and reports issues in real time. That's all about today's that's all about this session. So far we saw about what is brute force attack and how the brute force will work and what are the types of brute force we saw, and finally we saw about how to prevent brute force attack, and I hope you liked this session and thank you.